and we should not be an impediment to any such as a ministry.
Very good.
Teachers' employment.
How many teachers?
Yeah.
We are starting.
You said 116.
We are starting with the 30, and as the economy becomes vibrant, I'm sure I will be working very closely with the Parliament, because it is this 13th Parliament that will be able to give me funds in order to employ more teachers. But we are starting with about 30 in January, and I'm sure that the figure will be able to improve.
Thank you. Now, this time we start from the front. No soliciting Sharia.
Chairman.
Yes, please.
Yeah, Chairman, the question of the Mamamboga and the Boda Boda parents hasn't been answered by the Kenya Kwanza nominee.
Can you repeat the question?
The question was about the illegal levies, Chair, that have been levied to parents out all over the country.
Chairman,
yes,
Chair, I also didn't hear the answer to the cartels on TPD, university placement, Ruaraka land. I've not heard the answers. The Honorable Machogo answering, and I believe he's the nominee for Cabinet Secretary in the Republic of Kenya.
Thank you. Thank
not
you.
Kenya Kwanza.
Thank you. Once I get into office, there's 6,000, because our teachers are doing very good work for our children, and actually they should be commended for what they do. One area that I will look into, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members, is this, and the 6,000, and believe you me that I will be able to take the necessary remedial action. The necessary unnecessary levies, Chair, I will create systems, and those structures are already there. And out of those systems and the structures, monitoring, I will make sure that indeed parents are not subjected to unnecessary harassment, unnecessary levies, and because I'm one of you honorable members, anything that it will be, anywhere that it will be happening, because I will be accessible, I will be able to get that information, if not officially from my officers on the ground, then even from the people and the members of Parliament, and we will not allow anything like that, because if it is allowed, it will then affect even the Constitution, which says free and compulsory, because this is a constitutional matter.
Point of order.
Yes,
maybe you could advise the nominee to just be direct to answering the questions, other than
the microphone
to advise him. So, because they are straightforward questions. Do you have the temerity to deal with corruption in the Ministry of Education? Are you able, and do you have the capacity to re-engineer the placement of students, or do you even believe that the government-sponsored students, a majority of them should go to public universities or to private universities? It's a very straightforward question. Do you believe the teacher professional development program should be going to institutions that are private institutions or supporting our public universities? It's that simple.
Thank you. Thank you. I believe that the placement, our teachers, their development should go to public universities. Again, I also believe, when I look at the figures, Honorable Chairman, because the people we have qualifying for universities, 125 in a year, actually our public universities will accommodate all of them. So it's one of the areas that I think we will have to look into with members of Parliament.
Waziri nominee, you help inspire and instill confidence.
Yes.
By not looking into it, by acting when you get there. Is there any justification in truncating Egerton, Moi, Kisii, Southeastern, all these universities, and you are taking students to private universities and spending public money to bolster private universities when public universities are collapsing? It is not something to look into. It's something you have to go and act.
I will, because it is not only a policy matter but also legislative, I will come and I will be able to present to the Committee of Parliament so that Parliament now can be able to, so that we do the amendment, and it will not be in piecemeal, it will be thorough because I've looked at the Act.
Okay. Now, we'll start from the front row. Mama Mishi, Daud, Posing, George, Ferdinand. One question each.
Yeah,
and I just want to emphasize, Ezekiel, please just answer the question.
Thank you.
Story mingi wacha.
Thank you.
Yes. When a question is asked, what will you do with the cartels? You don't need a story to deal with cartels.
Thank you.
You'll either deal with them or you'll not deal with them.
Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, I just want to reiterate what Honorable Ichungu has just said on the issue of skill distribution of resources. And I want to say it's not only on the infrastructural funding, but also in terms of recruitment to the universities, in terms of the scholarship we get, either the presidential scholarship we get from friendly countries. We also need to ensure that we employ the principle of equity to ensure that those areas where education level is still very low, we need to put some focus and emphasis on those areas. And my question, Honorable Chair, will be on the issue of Higher Education Loan Board. During the olden days, the university graduates used to be recruited by the government to different sectors in the country so that they can be able to repay back the loan. Nowadays, it is different, and this is because of the scarcity of employment opportunities, and that is why it has become very difficult to sustain this fund. So what plans do you have to ensure that this kind of fund will still be sustained to ensure that the poor children from especially rural area, marginalized areas like the Asal, Coast Region, and other areas in this country can still access this kind of loan? Thank you.
Thank you. Daud.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I think Honorable Machogo has not answered Honorable Mbui's question very well, because it's not just illegal levies. They need to know when the government says free primary, free secondary education, it is not free because some of the levies are not on paper. They are just told students are sent home and told to come with this or the other. The other thing, Chair, is exam certificates. I believe the government has time immemorial said exam certificates should be released to the students who have already done exams, even if they have not paid for the fees. How do they look for a job when the exam certificates are being held by schools? Is there a way the Ministry of Education will give those students their certificates so they can go and look for a job instead of marking time, seeing how they are going to pay those fees? And placements in Form 1. The other day, you get a boy being placed in a girl's school, a girl being placed in a boy's school. Can we streamline that as well? Thank you.
Very good. Posing.
Thank you, Chair.
If you follow that trend, we will do very well.
Thank you, Chair. I will exactly follow. Honorable Machogo, Kenyans are looking at you, including myself. And there is a question which has been going on around in terms of building confidence. And people expected that the Minister for Education should have been either a professor or a doctorate in terms of PhD, not medical, or a bare minimum of a master's degree. When I was perusing your CV, I only saw a bachelor's degree of 1979 when I was about 4 years. And nothing has changed. So what will you tell those Kenyans to build confidence? Because if this parliament approves you, you'll be actually the Minister for Education. So what will you tell Kenyans to build confidence, including myself? And finally, the issue of delocalization. That policy has really dismantled families. It has caused chaos. Even the teachers which were delocalized to some other places, they don't even teach, Honorable Machogu, they don't teach. They're in problems, psychological problems. And therefore we have affected education. Kenyans have suggested that that policy should be scrapped and return people back to home so that they can teach properly. Will you agree with those Kenyans that are saying that we should be scrapping, including myself? Thank you, Chair.
George.
Thank you.
George
Thank you, Chair.
Murugara.
Thank you, Chair. Mheshimiwa Machogu. This is on behalf of the teachers. Problem number one is delocalization. That has been addressed. Problem number two is the government trying to usurp the powers of unions for the teachers, KNUT, KUPPET, to make them puppets, so that for whatever reason, teachers are controlled and they are not able to agitate for their rights. Number three, the difference between the salary of an ECD teacher, who is required to have a D- or a D+ and a diploma, and a P1 teacher, who is supposed to have possibly a C+ and a certificate. The ECD teacher earns 60,000, while the P1 teacher earns 30,000. How do you propose? Another problem is also promotion of teachers, because the ministry argues there are too many. You find that most of them, P1 teachers, will never be promoted. That brings disparity between what P1s earn with the senior teachers, deputy head teachers, and head teachers. The other one is the medical scheme you have.
George.
It's a problem for the teachers, so it is good I put them together here, how it's going to be. The medical allowance, because teachers complained they were not consulted. What happened is ministry scrapped the medical allowance, heaped them into an insurance company so that they would take medical cover, as a result of which their lives have not improved. In fact, possibly it is worse, because this is centrally managed and they have difficulties making claims. The question is, teachers' welfare. You as the Minister for Education, what policies are you likely to put into place to ensure that teachers, who are stakeholders number one in education, are actually catered for?
Let nobody emulate Murugara.
You be sure I'll not
Ferdinand.
do that. Be sure I'll not do that. I just want to ask you, the appointee, I want it to be very clear. I sometimes having a problem with the teachers. You send the commitment letters to the teachers that they're going to pay school fees for students, and even make that commitment the date. And yet students actually send away. They want hard cash to be taken to schools. So that at the end of the day, you have a lot of school dropouts, because there's no consistency in the school attendance. And this is basically because teachers don't even work with leaders. You tell them you are going to do ABCD, you have it in writing. I normally call it a commitment, because CDF may not come on time and I pay school fees for them, pay for university and what have you, and then yet teachers send students home in that discipline. What are you going to do about it?
Finish that front row.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Machogu, congratulations for your nomination. I just want to ask you about the school feeding programs. Because as I'm seated here in Nyeri County, the children are not able to go to school in Kieni. Ensuring that people are well fed, healthy, and able to learn is essential to the effectiveness of the education system. What will you do to enhance the sustainability in the school feeding program to ensure universal primary education and education for all, especially in the marginalized regions? Thank you.
Raquel, you can answer those.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Skilled recruitment. I will ensure that we do this on assessment of need need basis, areas that have acute shortage, areas that are lacking teachers. Those are the areas that will be able to recruit and send teachers, and not in areas where we already have almost enough. Scholarships are many. We have the RIMU scholarship, we have Jomo Kenyatta, we have Equity, and other bodies. I will make sure that I streamline this so that every part of Kenya, and particularly the disadvantaged marginalized areas, are able to benefit from these scholarships. Making help sustainable, I'm aware that indeed the funding has been constant, but there has been an increase in the number of students both in universities and TVET, and also their own repayment, because this is supposed to be a revolving fund. So you get their own repayment that they are supposed to pay is not forthcoming, not because of a fault of their own, but because some have left the university, they have not been able to secure employment. So this is one area that we will also make sure that a proper assessment is done in accordance to the number of applicants we have, so that we are able to consider the very needy cases to qualify for these loans. Irigo Revis, I assure you that during my time as a Minister for Education, I will not allow this to happen anywhere, and upon the teachers, in cooperation with Teacher Service Commission, I will ensure that these levies are not supposed to be there. Actually, primary school is supposed to be 100% free, apart from the parent on the buys uniform, on the uniform. And the other thing that parents, in conjunction with the school committees, in case they find it necessary, another area to provide food, lunch, then they agree on the amount that each and every parent is supposed to give, and that information is also supposed to be given the ministry. I think those are the only things that a parent is supposed to do. So I undertake that this one, I will make sure that no such irregularities. Exam certificates, indeed, the ministry, I remember seeing those circulars clearly saying that even if a child has not been able to pay school fees, they should be able to be given their certificates. Mine will be to enforce and make sure that whatever circular which was issued earlier, these certificates are given out, because I remember there is a circular, but on the enforcement that requires to be done.
Chair, Chair, he's just said, can I?
Yes.
Clarification. You see, that circular, Chair, has been there for ages, but the students can never access that one because enforcement has been difficult. Is there any other way that the students can get their certificates, probably from a Huduma center, directly without going to the school?
Deputy Speaker, just hold. Yes. Deputy Speaker has an
yes,
a minor intervention.
Yeah. Sorry, I have to make an intervention. You've mentioned school fees. I mean school uniforms. So you've said that the only thing parents need to pay for is the uniforms. But do you know that the uniforms are more expensive than the school fees itself? In a secondary school, a student has two types of jerseys, has a tracksuit, then has a fleece, and then has something else, and has shoes purchased from specific a specific vendor, which is like maybe sometimes it even goes up to 3,000 shillings a shoe. Well, parents, they should just tell parents black shoes, and the parents can go to Mitumba and buy it for 500 shillings. So actually uniforms are, so school is out of reach because of the challenge of uniforms. And the teachers are in bed with the school uniform suppliers.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Chair, can I just start on the uniforms?
No.
on the uniforms.
You'll have a chance to ask again.
because of the uniforms is one thing.
Okay.
Chair, besides being given directive as to which shop, schools these days now are directing that they buy from the school, such that the teachers have now abandoned their responsibility. They have become tailors, and they are now starting selling the same uniforms in schools.
Chair,
you can see of your work
yes,
cut out for you if we approve you.
My system and style of work is that I'm going to move almost county per county, and not only moving around for the sake of it. I will ensure that what the government has said should be implemented will be implemented. We will not allow those cartels where somebody is restricted. We are in a free market economy, such that you cannot say you specifically go to such and such a shop, because then there is conflict of interest. It means you have interest. So I assure you, those are now cartels. And at the aim of that ministry, if there is anything I'm not going to allow, is the existence of cartels. So I will make sure that things are done and done in the right way. Chair, teachers' welfare, certificates, Chair, once I get into the office, and I would like to get specific cases, even the Member of Parliament, because it is all over Kenya. But apart from issuing that, I will try to use all machinery as available, including my officers in the field, to ensure that we implement and enforce the circular, as it were.
You know, nominee, what you have to address, there are two competing interests. The school is owed fees, wants to hold on to the certificate to say, parent so and so, you pay fees before you get a certificate for your child. Right? The child has finished school, must get the certificate to go out there and struggle to look for something to do. Now, as minister, what are you going to put in place to mitigate this problem? Are you going to find some form of insurance undertaking that schools must release the certificates? Are you going to force schools to release certificates regardless? What are you going to do? And as a member of parliament of a constituency, until very recently, I'm sure you know, schools are holding thousands and thousands of certificates of children who have finished and cannot get them to go anywhere.
Thank you, Chair. This is one thing that once I get into office, I will think through, even if it means Kenya National Examination Council, in some of these cases, issuing now direct where teachers are behaving like that, because we have to work very closely with Teacher Service Commission, where we find the teachers not complying, then disciplinary action is taken.
Yes. Have you finished answering all of them?
Not yet. No, I'm answering.
But I just want to add, as an experience.
Let him finish.
Let him finish the answers.
Thank
then
you.
I'll give you an intervention.
One other thing I want to answer is that Machogu is a manager. Machogu has been tested. He's seasoned as a career civil servant, a prolific administrator, and actually what the Ministry of Education requires is a manager, because I will be able to understand the dynamics, which I will be able to grasp within no time. And once I know the mandate of that particular ministry, I am able, with the experience, I will leverage on the leadership, management, and administrative experience I have. And there is no doubt that this will be the best among the top ministers that ministry has ever had, because really what a minister requires, you are dealing with matters of policy, which I will be able to deal with. I will be able to engage so much with all stakeholders. Ministry of Education has many stakeholders, more than any other ministry. I will be able to coordinate, because you deal with the policy, you coordinate, and you get all these other people, because human beings, once you know how to build the teams and to manage, there is nothing that you cannot be able to do. So I have what it takes to ensure that we take the ministry to another level. Feeding program, we have it in 10 arid areas and 16 semi-arid areas. That is 26. We have informal settlements, we have slums, and this number, this administration undertakes to increase the number from 2,000 to 4,000. And I know we are working with the development partners. We would like this number to be increased even more, finally to pro 7,000-8,000, with the funds being available, because it's something that retains our children in school, also improves the quality of learning, because, you know, once they get food, it improves the quality of learning. Yes.
Very important, delocalization.
Thank you. Delocalization, Honorable Chair.
Emotive.
I would like honorable members and honorable Chair to know that this administration has totally changed that policy, and once I get into office, that is my first assignment. We are actually coming up with something we call nationalization, because what was happening there before, a teacher is transferred, not considering the circumstances. Even somebody has probably 1 year to retire, somebody is sickly, and then some of it was being used for punitive purposes. That one, this administration has done away with it. And where we find a teacher wanting to remain, like for example in West Pokot, this administration is going to provide certain other incentives for that particular teacher to remain within that particular area. Otherwise, we are not going to do what was being done in the other
Mr. Machogu, there is Honorable Machogu, somebody, Dr. Hassan, he says he's from northern Kenya, and he doesn't see anybody here from northern Kenya. He either doesn't know Sharia and Raso, or doesn't recognize them. He says schools in northern Kenya have no teachers. He knows of a school in Wajir with the standard 1 to 7, but with only 2 teachers. What are you going to do about it?
Thank you, Honorable Chair and members. We have a program in northern Kenya. Actually, I worked in that particular area. There are 2 ways of working out this, Honorable Chair. One, we have to work on matter of security, because we have so many unemployed teachers, but because of cases of insecurity, they have not been comfortable working in those areas. 2, we have to provide a mechanism where even if it is in-service courses, such that we are able to employ the local people to work within their areas, and we subject them to in-service courses. We don't insist that one has to have qualified as a P1 or diploma teacher in order to access employment, because I know and I'm aware that is a very serious problem. And once I take office, we will be able to discuss with the local leaders and the Teacher Service Commission, so that we are able to get some kind of permanent solution to the problem that is existing in northern Kenya.
The next batch, Koech, Amisi, Raso, Shurie, Emase.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Honorable Chair. Mine, Honorable Machogu, and just for the record, my name is Nelson Koech. Sorry, Mr. Chairman, for walking in a bit late when you had started. Mine will be on universities. You saw the case of Kenyatta University. These universities, most of our universities are now reeling in huge debts. Yet they have some of the most prized assets. How will you harness, use PPP to unlock the wealth and potential in our universities and its assets.
Amisi.
Thank you, Chair. There is this paradox that I want you to help me unravel. The first is that you look at the education, the budget every year. It has the highest chunk on our national budget. But conversely, the results of the education is actually still affecting our budget. The degrees holders are on the streets. It still comes to back and get budget to take care of youth population bulge. Second, there is a disconnect between success and education, something that is discouraging even the students, that the most successful people in Kenya are mostly dropouts or maybe just averagely educated. Maybe globally, not just in Kenya. That you'll see the people who pursue their talents are the most successful and rich. But the professors and the doctors are maybe averagely or just poor. Is this something that bothers you? And what is these new ideas are you going to really improve our education so that it matches the success and the effort that students put in? They must be hopeful in life that once you finish education, you want to be somewhere. But it is a big disconnect, so much so that graduates that are burning papers on the streets, they are burning their certificates and getting disillusioned. Some are committing suicide because they see their fellows who dropped out in class 2. There are members of parliament, there are governors. You are being told that you can go to a cabinet without a degree. You know, is this really the education sector you want to build? And is it giving morale to students?
Russell.
Thank you very much, Chair. Honorable Machogu, congratulations on your nomination. Nelson Mandela said education is the greatest equalizer. It is true to say, looking at your CV and your exposition to this honorable committee, that you worked in Nyandarua and also in Wajir. From your experience, those two regions are Kenya, but the education standards are obviously very different. Where more from Nyandarua access higher education, going to universities and higher colleges of learning, the same numbers are unlikely to be attracted from Wajir. If the House is going to give you this job, what are some of the measures you are likely to do so that those who live in outlying districts in this country also, by virtue of getting almost equal education, that they consider themselves as Kenyans? Finally, during Amina Mohammed, after consultation, I'm just following up what Honorable Chair there was asked by Dr. Hassan. She said that those from northern Kenya with the grade of D+ can access teacher training colleges, so that as many of them from the local environment will remain there and teach the local children. Because the experience we have, those from outside the ASAL areas, they get employed, they stay 1 year, and they buy themselves out of those areas. And that is why a school with 8 classes, that is from standard 1 to 8, actually likely to end up with 2 teachers. But also this is exacerbated by the issue of insecurity. Once there is a firefight, then the teachers from other parts of Kenya actually they ran away from northern Kenya. So what are some of the initiatives you are likely to undertake so that as many as you could get of the local cadre that is likely to join teaching? Thank you, Chair.
Sharia.
Thank you, Bono Chair, and I think the worry that Northern Kenya has is that's why they had to try and get to you, because they're not sure if maybe we'll ask the same question that you just asked. And Mheshimiwa Machogu, I'll just put more emphasis on what Dr. and Mheshimiwa Raso said. Dr. Amina, when she was at this education, she had a program which was just to at least cover Northern Kenya in the short term and help them get teachers. Because you can imagine, as Dr. Hassan said, that there are only 2 teachers in a whole school. Maybe you might have 300-400 students. You don't expect those kids to get the same education with maybe students here in Nairobi. Please, if you are approved, consider Dr. Amina's proposals. Thank you very much.
Mary Amasi.
Thank you, Speaker. My concern goes to primary and secondary education, because without those 2, which are the foundation, then we do not need the universities. To the nominee, these education circulars from the ministry, guidelines, directives, whatever, I put it to you that they have been completely ignored. The issue of illegal charges, and case in point, I want to put it to you as I speak to you. There is a primary school, a public primary school in Busia County that is charging a standard 8 pupil 32,350. This pupil has to pay for a prayers day, has to pay for sufuria. Each child is contributing money to buy sufurias, pay for the cook, you know, different types of welfare, different types of exams. So we are wondering, you've said you're going to enforce. How exactly are you going to enforce so that there is compliance? And as I conclude also, most of the ministry sends disbursement to schools in form of capitation that are supposed to take care of maintenance, continuous maintenance, and what have you. But I also put it to you, a number of schools are dilapidated. And that tells us 2 things. Either the money is being embezzled, or you need to relook at M&E, monitoring and evaluation effectiveness, because something is definitely wrong somewhere. And apart from the dilapidated schools, we also have very good schools that have been run down. We have giants that previously posted very impressive results, like a school in my constituency called St. Paul's Amkura High School. It was a 6-streamed school. Very many dignitaries in this country have gone through that school. But today, the school has completely been run down. It has lost traction. It can hardly manage 2 streams. So what are you going to do about such institutions? And finally,
Mary,
finally, Mr. Speaker, I want to just remind the nominee on the question that Honorable Mukami asked on school feeding, because we campaigned on that platform. We aligned our manifestos to our presidential manifesto, and Kenyans are asking, when are we to expect implementation? If we approved your nomination, how soon should we have that in place? The issue of sustainability and the issue of how soon would you implement? Thank you.
Ezekiel, we can deal with those 5 very quickly. We are running out of time, and we still have 3 members who want to ask questions.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. To start with Kenyatta University and many other universities that are in financial problems, I think we would encourage universities not only to depend on the exchequer, but also explore on other ways of making money, because Chairman, actually this problem goes back when the universities, we had Module 2, commonly known as the parallel programs. Universities had a boom, but when this now changed, the entry grade from a B to a C plus, such that they don't have any more students, so they have to look for revenue streams. apart from what they are getting from government, like research, innovation. Actually, universities, their core mandate is research and innovation. We want to encourage our universities to get into this, because by so doing, they will also be able to generate money. There is a lot of idle capacity, idle land. Others can be able to engage even in commercial agriculture, like the university that he has talked about. I'm aware it has about 700 acres. So we have to go into certain ventures, and also universities have to downsize to right the size, such that they look at the employees, such that they are able to rationalize in a way that with what they have, they don't exceed and go beyond their budgets. So we will also be discussing with vice chancellors on this, because it's not one university, it's almost all of them, and I'm sure once we discuss, we will be able to come up with ideas that should be able to save the situation. Even endowment fund, where the alumni, if Macho was in Nairobi University, there are so many people who can be able to come in one or the other and assist, and even making universities as destinations in the region. Once we have best universities, we can attract the people from Rwanda, from Tanzania, from the neighboring countries, and by so doing, they will also be able to generate additional income. The relevance of education, question number 2, your Honorable Chair, it is through that education takes the greatest percentage of our revenue, 25.9%, or they're about to be exact. And sometimes we have children going to university, even middle-level colleges, and when they come out, there is no employment, or when there is actually underemployment. So this situation of joblessness, also when you analyze how relevant are the courses that we offer in some of these universities, does the market require some of the courses that we offer in universities? So this is one other issue that we have to look at, that we our university courses are demand-driven, such that what the market, the industry requires at any given time is what we are able to train our children in, so that when they finish college, chances of getting employment will be better. Education as an equalizer, I agree with you, Nyandaru and Wajir, because I worked in the two presses. I will, once you give me permission to assume office, discuss with members of parliament from Northern Kenya, because I also understand the program so much, having worked there for almost 3 years. I know that even matter security, because when I was in Wajir, before I went there, I used to be a lot of banditry, and we were able to deal with it. By the time I was leaving Wajir, there was no banditry. So one other thing, I will be able to liaise very closely with my counterpart in internal security. We deal with that problem. 2, I've proposed that we must have a way forward and domesticate this in a way that even if we have in-service courses, and I think Teacher Service Commission has no option in some of these things, because we cannot be able to move ahead when another part of the country is actually lagging behind, and the solution is not going to come from anywhere. We have to have homegrown solutions. So I will be with you in this, and I assure you that we should be able to get a solution. And one of them is low-cost boarding schools, because the nature and the lifestyle of our people in Northern Kenya is nomadic. Sometimes they are able to move from one place to another. So establishment of low-cost boarding schools will also be one of the issues that I will be able to look into. Directive was ignored. Macho has been a career civil servant. When a directive is issued, and as it were, if it is from the president, that is an executive order. It has to be implemented come what may. I've seen even orders issued from the highest office and the people don't comply. Because if you don't comply, then you are asking for dismissal. That is insubordination. It amounts into insubordination. So with the career civil servant at the helm of that ministry, we are not going to have a situation, Honorable Chairman, where directives are issued and the people just ignore with impunity. That impunity in this country is one other thing we will have to deal with, and I assure you, if it is in the means of education, I will deal with it squarely. Finally, we also have 32,000, Madam. I worked in Busia, Amukura was a giant, and some of these schools, Honorable Chairman, my personal experience is that a school is as good as the principal or the head of that institution. So sometimes we have appointed people as principals. They were good in the classroom, very good, but you find they have not been undertaken through the necessary courses for management. So capacity, what we are also going to do with our head teachers, some of them who have done so well but they have not been capacitated, we will be able to build the capacity so that when they are heading such schools, then they know financial management, they know how to deal with the various stakeholders in a school, so that we are able to approve the standards of this school. Amukura being one of them. We will also be able to make the quality assurance officers, because like in my constituency, if I give an example, I know this used to be inspectors of schools. During our time, you will be able to confirm that these are the people who used to go around schools, and when they used to come and inspect the schools, then whatever they said used to be done. So we'll also make sure that that particular department, we are able to strengthen it, we are able to support it, so that they are able to do the work that they are intended to do.
Next, Naisula Gikare, you already asked the question. Naisula, and then Mule. Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Please take a minute each. You can see we have 52 seconds.
Okay.
And we have 2 nominees waiting.
I'll be very brief. I just want to reiterate on the school feeding program that as you look onto it, please just consider water for schools, and especially during this time of drought, even if it's water tracking, students are really struggling in schools, and to make sure to understand that some children just go to school even to have that meal, 1 meal a day. My question is also on sanitary towels. I know that there was an amendment and we passed in Parliament that our school-going girls, both in primary schools and secondary schools, should all be entitled to sanitary towels, because there are some who miss the schooling and during their menstrual period. And I know that it was taken to the Ministry of Gender, but how will you liaise with the Ministry of Gender to ensure that our girls do not miss school because of their menses?
Yes,
Thank you, Chair. This is a case-by-case basis depending on where. And this is about teachers and their house allowances and their hardship allowances. And misplacement. Others are placed as if they're in rural areas, yet they are in urban areas or cities. So that is, I don't know how you'll be dealing on a case-by-case basis, because when it comes, then you have to address as it comes, because, and I will say in my constituency, there is a lot of house allowance which was taken away from some teachers. Which is supposed to be. Honorable Chair, the other bit is about the students and their discipline in school. Chair, especially in urban areas, and you need to look at and see how you can help on matters to do with discipline. Within some urban areas, the schools, particularly secondary schools, have become breeding ground for criminals, where people are, they are recruited into criminal gangs and
to a point where sometimes when the banning of schools, for example, that the banning of boarding schools, which have been a big problem in the country. So again, how are you going to address on matters to do with discipline for the children within our schools, especially secondary and boarding schools? Thank you.
Honorable Mule.
Thank you very much, Speaker. I just need to introduce myself. I found you did introduce Honorable Stephen Mule, MP Matungulu. Mine to the nominee. Why is it very impossible to replace the KCSC certificate for NEC when somebody has lost it or destroyed it? Whereas you know it very well, it is a basic right for basic education. It's actually unconstitutional. What will you do to make sure that those who lose their certificates at one way or another, they are able to get a replacement at NEC or within the circles of education, so that they'll be able to continue their lives? Some, especially when you find some fires gutter the slums. Quite a number of children loses, households lose their documents. But to replace just the NEC certificate for KCSC is a very tall order in this country, whereas education is a basic right. It's actually unconstitutional if we cannot provide that basic right. Thank you.
Ezekiel, can you quickly answer those three?
Thank you, Honorable Chairman. As I said, I will ensure that the school feeding program is actually strengthened. This administration undertook to increase the number from 2,000 to 4,000, and we have a very ambitious program that even the 4,000 figure should be increased gradually to get to 7,000 or 8,000. Water, I agree with you. The capitation money that we give is supposed to cover some of these things. It's an issue that we would also be able to look into. Sanitary towels, indeed, is something that has to be done. I'm not aware that it has been taken the means of gender, but if it has, it's something
actually, I just got a text. It had gone to gender, and gender reverted it back to the Ministry of Education, so it's solely under your ministry now.
This is one portfolio. You know, once you have something that you are supposed to deal with, it's better that it is in the ministry. These are our children. They require that green environment. They require to have this, and we'll make sure that this is dealt with as a matter of priority. It's something that I will be able to make sure that I make a follow-up, and there will be no failure at all in the supply and the provision of sanitary towels. House allowance and hardship, this one, our teachers must get what is due to them. Any case where a teacher is supposed to get house allowance and is not getting, we must ensure that they get. Any teacher where pro live is within a municipality and is not getting the amount of house allowance that is supposed to get, these are some of the cases that I will ensure that Teacher Service Commission does comply, because that is what they are supposed to do, so that we are fair to each and every teacher. Discipline, Honorable Chair, is quite a problem. We have had cases of our young children indulging themselves in criminal activities. We have had children getting into substance and drug abuse. We have had children getting out of school and some doing things which indulging in social behavior that is not proper. And some of these things, I think, requires a concerted effort, not only from the school administration, but even the parents. Because, you know, Kenya, we are entirely a patriarchal society. The father figure is so important, so critical, and in some of the families, in some of the homes, unfortunately, you find there is negligence, there is abscondment, there is absence. So the poor child does not have anybody to mentor him, does not have a role model, and these are some of the factors causing all this. But within the school, we say we have to have proper professional counseling services so that we are able to deal with some of these cases. Otherwise, it requires a combination of the school administration and also the local administration, plus the community and the parents to deal with some of the indiscipline programs that we have. I get what Chairman about the replacement of certificates. If we can replace a title deed in less than 1 week, I don't see a reason why Kenya National Examination Council should not be able to replace a certificate in a day, because we should not do things in the old way, and this is one of the things that I will be able to take up to ensure that the necessary action is taken so that any Kenyan wanting a replacement, it is done within the very minimum period, not taking more than 1 week.
Thank you, Ezekiel. You've answered questions reasonably well. You can see from the interest from the members that you have been nominated to a docket that touches the foundation of our country, our children, their growth, their mentoring, and so on. So in the event you are confirmed, you have to do the extra mile. Avoid showbiz and help Kenyans. We've seen a lot of fanfare in constructing a classroom from a minister when parents are crying about CBC and many other things. Please look at our universities. At lunchtime today, I had a vice chancellor who has come to see me just to tell me she can't hold it anymore because there's no money. And that's the point that Kimani Ichung'wah started with. Why would you finance private enterprise at the expense of public good and public institutions? Those are big questions waiting for you. Yeah. And I'm sure you are up to the task if we confirm you. 3 minutes, tell us what you want us to do for you.
Thank you.
Oh yes, just before that, Dawood had actually walked to me to ask me to give him 30 seconds to ask you about special schools.
Thank you, Chair.
Special education or special
Yes,
schools?
special schools.
Yes.
Special schools are completely ignored in this country. The Education Ministry has forgotten about them. So if you are confirmed, will you take special emphasis for special schools or PWD schools? Because they're an integral part of our education. So do you have anything you know about it, or you will look at it?
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Actually, I had a special school in my constituency, which was known as Committee, and they were my children. I gave them special consideration, and in this particular one, I will make sure that I cover for their welfare, because these ones have to be given special consideration. Actually, affirmative action has to be really looked into as far as this one is concerned. So that one I will.
Good. 3 minutes.
Thank you, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members, for the opportunity, and I thank God and His Excellency the President for also giving me the opportunity to serve Kenyans. I make an undertaking to you, Honorable Chair and members, that I am equal to the task. I will be able to take the education sector to another level, because, as it were, education is actually the major determinant to the success of all other sectors of the economy, right from basic to tertiary to our universities. I will make sure that all the challenges that we have we will be able to sort them out. And mine is an open door policy, such that we will be able to engage widely with the teachers, with the union of issues, KNUT, KUPET, and every other person, because almost everyone is an interested party as far as education is concerned. So I want to assure you that given this opportunity, I will also create systems that will work so that monitoring and evaluation will also be done for us to achieve the best results ever. Thank you, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members.
Thank you, Honorable Ezekiel Machogo Mbaki, CBS. You are now released to go to your other duties, and we wish you well.
Honorable Chair, I was requesting the many courses I attended are not attached. If you can
sort out with her.
Probably they can also.
Yes, you'll go and sort out with her. They are of a persuasive value only.
Honorable Chairman, I have a proposal.
Yes.
If you allow me. Looking at the time, and I know many people will want to engage most of these nominees, is it fair that each member, when given an opportunity, instead of skirting around issues, just directly go to the question, to give as many members as possible time to ask questions? I have so many words to use on a question, but I restrain myself because I want to afford my colleagues time to also ask the same question.
Honorable Koech, since we started, that's what I've been crying for. Ask one question, be clear, be concise, be precise. But some of us decide to make a speech as a prelude to a question.
An intervention on the same, Mr. Speaker,
yes.
if you allow me.
As we do that, look for the Honorable Ababu Namwamba. Yes, Mary?
Speaker, I would propose you give us a minute or two. If I can prosecute my 2 questions or 3 within the 2 minutes, then well and good. I think that would be the best thing, time. Then I manage my time to prosecute my issues. Thank you.
Yes. Yes. To be frank,
yes.
Sometimes you ask a direct question, the nominee will ask supplementary question to understand what you're asking. So there may be some background information required so that we lay the basis, then you ask the question.
So far, so good.
So far, so good, in fact.
Speaker. It's about vetting. Speaker. It's about vetting.
So far, so good. I don't think there is an alarm.
There's no alarm.
Just try and be disciplined.
It's about vetting. We need to be very elaborate.
Swali moja. Ukitaka la pili, ask for permission to ask a second question.
Exactly. And the Speaker, it's up to how somebody manages his time. If it's 1 minute, you manage your 1 minute or 2 minutes. Whether by 1 question or 2 questions.
Agent, can you bring the Honorable Ababu Namwamba? Okay. In Mero. Yeah, okay. Yes. Okay.
My questions haven't been long. I've been trying
to
be brief.
You've been doing very well. Good afternoon, Mike.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman.
You are the Honorable Ababu Namwamba, EGH.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, sir.
Welcome to the committee.
Thank you.
Can the clerk administer? You have the Quran, the Bible, and affirmation depending on your faith.
The Bible, Mr. Chairman.
Hold on, Ababu. Sergeant, can you clear the foyer? Either people are there quietly or they go and talk elsewhere. Go ahead and take the oath.
I, Ababu Namwamba, do hereby swear to testify on all matters in question and tell this committee the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
Thank you, the Honorable Namwamba. You're welcome to this committee, a committee of the National Assembly, set up under the standing orders, the law, and the Constitution, to conduct confirmation hearings or vetting of persons nominated, like yourself, to hold position as Cabinet Secretary. In this regard, we are here to engage you in the next 90 minutes. The committee is chaired by the Speaker of the National Assembly. Yours truly here. I'll ask all members to introduce themselves, starting with the Deputy Speaker.
Congratulations, Honorable Ababu, on your nomination as a Minister for Sports. My name is Gladys Boss, member for Wasingishu County and Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly. Karibu.
Asante.
Kimani Ishongwa, member of Parliament for Kikuyu.
My name is Opio Wandai, MP Ugunja.
I'm Robert Mbui, MP for Kadhiani.
Rehab Mukami, County MP Nyeri.
Good afternoon. My name is Ferdinand Wanyonyi, member of Parliament for Kwanza, Trans Nzoia County.
George Gitonga Murugara, MP Tharaka Nithi County.
And I'm David Kosing, MP Pokot South, West Pokot County.
Abdul Rahim Daud, MP for North Imenti in Meru County and a member of this committee.
Honorable Mishi Mboko, MP Likoni, also a member of this committee.
Nelson Rapkwech, MP Belgut. To your left, Honorable Ababu.
Yeah, good evening. Caleb Wamisi, MP Saboti.
Didoraso, MP Saku.
Abdi Shurie, MP Balambala, Garissa County.
Emase Mary, MP Teso South. And Mr. Speaker, I want to declare my interest that the nominees from my county and worked closely with me during the campaigns, the bottom-up Busia County, but that will not in any way affect my work. Leo Nikazi. Thank you.
Stephen Mule, MP Matungulu.
Kikaria David, Nakuru Town East.
Naisula Lesuda, MP Samburu West.
So we'll introduce themselves. Florence.
Yes, sitting in for the acting clerk is Florence Atenyo Abonyo, Director, Audit, Appropriations and other select committees. With me is Mr. Michael Karuru, who is the Deputy Director, Legal Services, and behind him is a team of officers in the committee secretariat.
Honorable Ababu Namwamba, you have been nominated by the President as the Cabinet Secretary for Youth Affairs, Sports and the Arts. The purpose of your appearance here is for this Committee of Parliament to engage you and establish your suitability for the office to which you have been nominated. Our engagement is not adversarial. It ought to be cordial but firm, fair, factual, and legal. We discourage ourselves from you as the nominee directly engaging members. You do through the chair, and members have also been very good in their conduct. All questions are asked through the chair. Even if you ask a question that pricks your inner feelings, so to speak, avoid the temptation to lose your cool and engage us in a manner that enhances the confidence of Kenyans in this process. We will, as a committee, act fairly, and we expect you to answer all questions truthfully, concisely, precisely, so that we can save on time. We have one other colleague of yours waiting to appear before the close of the day. Before we start, we will ask you some procedural questions, and after that we'll give you about 10 minutes or less, if you can do less the better, to tell us the story of your life up to where you are sitting before this committee. I must also inform the committee that the Honorable Ababu Namwamba is very well known to me. He's a professional colleague in the legal profession. He comes from the same region as I do. He's a friend, and we have served in cabinet together before. That does not in any way affect my ability to chair these proceedings. Honorable Namwamba, do you have the following documents? One, tax compliance certificate.
Mr. Chairman, I do.
Higher education loans board clearance certificate.
I do.
Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission clearance.
I do.
Certificate of good conduct.
I do, Mr. Chairman.
Have you ever been charged and been convicted of any criminal offense in a court of law?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Are you a dual citizen of Kenya and any other jurisdiction?
Mr. Chairman, I'm exclusively a citizen of Kenya.
You have your original identity card. You'll pass it on to the clerks to see.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
And if you have the originals of all these documents, you'll share with the clerks to compare with what you already forwarded to us. Then they'll give you back your originals. At a personal level, what is your net worth in terms of finances?
Mr. Chairman, may I, with your permission, just draw your attention to the fact that my bachelor's degree certificate from the University of Nairobi, I submitted a copy of the same, but I do have a confirmation letter from the university confirming my status as a graduate of that university.
What happened to the original?
It was misplaced, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead and answer the last question.
Mr. Chairman, my net worth is 425 million Kenya shillings.
How do you segregate that?
If you allow me, Mr. Chairman, I would quickly make reference to the questionnaire that I submitted to this honorable committee, which provides details of the spread of that net worth, which includes my residence here in the city of Nairobi, my country residence back in Busia County, a business titled Chase Bay, 2 land holdings, a shareholding in Safaricom, the Cooperative Bank, and the Kenya Power. And my pension income is part of that net worth. 2 motor vehicles, a Range Rover and a Jeep Wrangler Rubicon, and 2 water vessels, Mr. Chairman. That is provided in the details of the questionnaire, totaling to 425 million.
Those are fishing boats or luxury boats?
Mr. Chairman, you know,
common call a yacht.
When you talk to anybody from the land of my natural domicile, they'll tell you we cherish our boats as much as we cherish our women.
Yes.
And so those are boats for private use, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. We'll now give you 10 minutes or less to tell us the story of your life.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I'm proudly a country boy. A country boy, or you could say a boy of the village, from Port Victoria, Budalangi. We call Budalangi the land of lions. This is the home of the Abanyala people of the larger Luya community. These are people that pride themselves for being great fishermen, for being great hard workers. They really do know how to hustle. They're great wrestlers. We love our boats as much as we love our women, as I've said. We love a swig of our local brew, but we also cherish education greatly. This is the land of the great Professor Callistus Juma the Late, one of the most eminent intellectuals out of this country, to grace the halls of the great Harvard University in Boston, Massachusetts. The land also of my brother, Professor Namwamba, who is here with me, who has been recognized as a sage globally. And Mr. Chairman, it is in this community that I was born to the late Peter Luecheche Namwamba, my father, and my mother, Agatha Maina, who I like to call my prayer warrior. Mr. Chairman, I was born the 8th, the last of 8 children in this family, and led an ordinary life of a village child. Attended Port Victoria Primary School, where I sat my KCPE, and proceeded to Kolanya Boys High School in the north of Teso for my KCSE. And thereafter I was admitted to the University of Nairobi, the School of Law, to study my bachelor's degree in law. I graduated and got into practice, Mr. Chairman. And a few years down the line, I got an American government scholarship to do my master's degree at the American University, Washington College of Law in Washington, D.C. After which I returned to Kenya, Mr. Chairman, and went straight into the 2007 elections, which I won and was elected as Member of Parliament for Budalangi constituency, and served for 10 years in that capacity in this Honorable House. Mr. Chairman, during that period, I also had the privilege to chair a number of committees in this House, including co-chairing with the then Mandera Central Member of Parliament, Honorable Abdikadir Mohammed, the Parliamentary Select Committee on Constitution Review that presided over the process that led to our 2010 Constitution. I also chaired the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, the Public Accounts Committee, and the Parliamentary Select Committee on Cost of Living. Mr. Chairman, I'm nostalgically proud of the period earlier in my life in school because I had the opportunity to get inducted into leadership early, being a prefect in primary school, a school captain in high school, now they call them school presidents, and also chairman of the Kenya Law Student Society while at the University of Nairobi. And later on, even in the US, I was involved in activities of the African student groups. At one time, being part of the group that met the then Senator Barack Obama in the build-up to his historic election as first black president of the United States. Mr. Chairman, after the 2017 elections, I was appointed Chief Administrative Secretary in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, a position I held until February this year, when I resigned voluntarily on my own volition to take up the position of Head of International Relations in the presidential campaign of His Excellency William Ruto and the Kenya Kwanza Coalition. And that has led me here, Mr. Chairman. Let me add that during my time as a Member of Parliament, I also had a privilege to serve in Cabinet when I was appointed Minister for Youth Affairs and Sports by His Excellency Mwai Kibaki and the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, then Prime Minister in the coalition government. I look back at my 10 years in this House as a key period in my journey in public service, with some very special highlights, certainly top among them being the Constitution of Kenya 2010, that I had such a great privilege to be part of the leadership that led to the conclusion of that process. That period also had some low moments, like the fate of the Public Accounts Committee at the time of my leadership of that committee in 2015, which got caught up in what I believe to date to have been a political moment of madness that, Mr. Chairman, maybe at a later stage I'll be able to expound. But, Mr. Chairman, that is who I am. Let me just conclude by saying, Mr. Chairman, that I have led a journey that for me epitomizes the life of what has come now to join the Kenyan lexicon as the hustler. Because I'm a boy who, I said I'm a country boy, a village boy. I'm a boy who walked to school barefoot. I mean, I would walk to school barefoot and sit in class with pangs of hunger, but never lose a smile on my face or gladness in my heart or determination to finish school. But that's the story of many of us. Mr. Chairman, I conclude by saying it is so important for parents to inspire their children no matter what. One time my father came home with a newspaper a Taifa Leo newspaper with a photo of some lawyers nicely clad in the courtroom regalia of the wigs and the gown. And he told me, my son, you must become a family lawyer to protect the interests of this family. And he planted the seed in a small standard 6 boy to work hard and become an attorney. And so every so often, Mr. Chairman, I do a pilgrimage where I take my children on the 3-kilometer walk from my mother's home to Port Victoria Primary School to have an experience of what it meant to grow up in those circumstances, not so that they can do the same, but so that they can understand how far their father has come. And this is the same message I want to share with the people of Kenya, that no matter your circumstances, you can rise and achieve your dreams. That is my story, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Abab Namamba. That's the story of many of us. I want to invite members to the interactive session. Members, you yourselves said you want to ask one clear, precise question each. And Honorable Babu, avoid any unhelpful stories in answering the questions. Just answer them as they are asked. I'll start with the Deputy Speaker, the Honorable Gladys Boss.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I just want to ask the nominee to give us a roadmap of what you will do to change the plight of our sports people, particularly athletes, who the ministry has never attempted to help them on pension issues, financial management, mental health, and protection also from rogue agents and who have swindled them or signed them up for races which contracts are not disclosed to them, and therefore they don't get their full pay on it, or even con them into doping. And then secondly, I know you might know that I had made a petition in 2013 seeking to have Kasarani have a school, a sports academy annexed to it, so that the unutilized sports facilities can be used by the sports academy. And I wonder what your thoughts are on that. Thank you.
We will take batches of 4, then you answer all of them.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Babu, you served in this ministry, and therefore it's you're going back home. By the time you served, there was no sports fund. Now we have a sports fund that exists. What do you intend to do to make sure that the sports fund is utilized for the purposes that it was intended, if you are approved?
Yeah, Honorable Babu, I reckon that you served in this very ministry 10 or so years ago. So what new thinking are you bringing on the table if and when you get a chance to be approved to assume this role? Secondly, you will realize that the NYS, with the setting up of the NYS Council and the bringing on board the new management, the NYS has undergone some transformation and its image has been redeemed somewhat. What do you intend to do to sustain that momentum? And finally, on your way to Busia, kindly pay a visit to the NYS unit at Langala and find ways of expanding it. Thank you.
Have you approved him already?
if by any chance he gets the approval of the House.
Okay.
Yes.
Robert Mbui.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Chair, our nominee, the Honorable Puistofik, I hope I've pronounced that right. There was an affidavit that sworn by Sheila Masinde, I think, and Davis Malombe, which laid claim to the period when he served as a PSC chair in 2014, where there were serious allegations of bribery by himself and members of that committee, in fact leading to the first ever watchdog committee in the history of Kenyan Parliament to be disbanded. And the allegations were extortion and blackmail. I would like the nominee to maybe shed light on what happened on that matter.
4, you can answer those. Babu.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Excuse me. Mr. Chairman, should this committee, in its wisdom, find me worthy of holding the position to which I have been nominated, it is true that I would be going to a space that is not entirely strange or new to myself, having served in this ministry between 2012 and 2013. And so, to answer the Honorable Deputy Speaker on the roadmap to change the plight of our sports people, I can confidently tell you that I have a fairly good idea, a good view of the sport or the sporting terrain, and I am not under any illusion as to the state of this terrain at the moment. It is actually in absolute turmoil. As we speak right now, our football activities are in limbo, having been suspended by the World Football Governing Federation, FIFA. The Badminton Federation is banned. The Swimming Federation is banned. So the whole arena of sports is in total chaos. Kenya is in a state of a doping crisis. This year alone, there have been no less than 30 cases of doping, which is threatening to shatter the very fine, glittering image of Kenya as a fine state sporting nation. The whole benefit of pension is not available to our sports people. And that is why a lot of our sports people who retire from active sportsmanship, they live in penury. We've seen it with sporting giants like Kadenge, like our fine boxing hero Aruinge, who passed away the other day. And it's because there is absolutely no framework to take care of these sports people in their retirement. We have rogue agents who do not seem to pay any regard to the laws of the land. And I have reason to believe, from past experience, from information available to me, that they may actually be part of the syndicate that is drawing our sports people, especially athletes, into these increasing doping cases. And so, should I be cleared to assume this office, I am determined to move with haste to start cleaning up this space, starting, of course, with the FIFA ban. If you cleared me, if I was to be sworn into office, my first morning in office, I would be on the phone with Mr. Gianni Infantino, the president of FIFA, to resolve the ban on FKF and Harambee Stars. I want to listen a lot. I would say that in my first 100 days in office, I would do a lot of listening. I want to listen to federations. I want to listen to sports people themselves. I want to listen to stakeholders so that we together can draw a roadmap to return sports to the pedestal it belongs. But most importantly, in line with the Kenya Kwanza Manifesto, I would want to work with all stakeholders to turn sports into a huge industry that can help in resolving our burgeoning unemployment rate and also protect our sports people from exploitation, from the challenge of drug abuse, and the challenge of being able to live in dignity after retirement. Quickly to conclude the question of Madam Deputy Speaker, the Kasarani Sports Academy is something I'm familiar with because it is around the time when I served as minister here that we started the journey to put this academy in place. Regrettably though, this is a brilliant project that got stuck and has not moved much, but we have to elevate this academy to a point where it becomes a focal point for nurturing talent in this country, identifying talent, nurturing talent, and unleashing this talent onto the national and the global stage. I'm a keen follower of football. I'm aware, for instance, of the Clairefontaine Center in France, which is like a conveyor belt. It keeps churning out incredible talent. Talk of Thierry Henry, talk of Kylian Mbappe. You see players who have been nurtured at this French academy. We can do it here. And I would be very determined, should I find favor with this committee, to occupy this ministry, to put in place the measures to get this academy to the point where it should be. Mr. Chairman, quickly, to the point raised by the Honorable Leader of Majority of this House, Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah. Yes, I'm familiar. I'm aware that at the time I served in this ministry, in fact, one of the biggest challenges was financing sports. And Mr. Chairman, my biggest achievement as Minister for Sports at that time was the enactment of the Sports Act. In fact, for the brief period that I was in this ministry, I took it upon myself to accelerate the process of enacting this law. And it is in this law that we provided for the establishment of the fund. But I left the ministry before the institutions established under this law were actualized, one of them being the Sports Fund. After the law became operational, there were changes. There was an amendment to this law that spread the benefits of this fund and even renamed the fund from what we had crafted in the original piece of legislation. And it's now called the Sports, Arts and Social Development Fund. And Honorable Majority Leader, you may want to know that under the regulations put in place by Treasury, 60% of this fund for the last several years has been going to healthcare. It is something which I believe government should take a fresh look at, because if this fund was intended to accelerate the development of the sporting and creative industry space, then the priority should go to providing support to those two areas. Today, sports is only entitled to 35% of this fund, and the arts only 5%. And often I hear even those percentages are not remitted to those two important departments. And so it is an area that I would definitely pay priority to. And I would definitely engage Treasury and other departments of government in the spirit of collective responsibility in government to return priority of this fund to its original intention, so that we do not have cases where we hear our athletes arriving late in Oregon for important competitions, where you hear of incredible stories of horror of our athletes spending nights at airports because of mismanagement and limited resources. So yes, Honorable Majority Leader, this is an area that I'll pay attention to. My good neighbor and friend, Honorable Minority Leader Opio, and I, what new thing could I possibly do if I were to make a return to this ministry? A lot of water has flown under the bridge in the 10 years since I was last at this ministry. But what gives me confidence is that I was part of the team that put in place the existing legal framework, the existing policy framework. I'm informed that the outgoing cabinet secretary has already initiated a process to revise these laws and the relevant policies. It is a process I would want to support because the law is supposed to be living, it's supposed to be current, it's supposed to be relevant. So it's a process that I would want to support and progress. But we have also moved on greatly. Now we have a new government that is putting great emphasis on sports and the arts as a big driver of the economy. That is something we did not pay much attention to previously. I definitely want to pay keen attention to that. I did mention the Clairefontaine Academy in France. You could also add St. George's in England, which are centers of excellence. These are spaces which we want to learn from. And we have experiences here, by the way, Honorable Andai, with the history from people like Zgol in the 70s, Reinhard Fabisch in the 80s, who dared to do things differently, and we saw results in our sports. I am prepared to do things differently, and I'm prepared to listen. I'm prepared to run an open door policy so that together we can make a success of this. NYS, Honorable Andai, you are right that NYS is now in much better shape. When I was first minister here, NYS was part of my mandate. But then after I left, NYS sort of became a nomad. It ended up in all sorts of places. But it has now been returned to this ministry. And I want to assure you that the very good work that the current Director General and her team have done at NYS is something that I want to support and to progress the work of NYS. NYS is now a full-fledged statutory body. It is a full-fledged paramilitary unit within our security architecture. So the way NYS is operating is definitely different from before. And these progressive steps are steps that I would definitely want to look at. And Honorable Andai, being a good neighbor in Ugunja, I know that if I did not visit this facility in Rangala, I might not get passage rights to access my Dala down in Budalangi. So should this committee clear me, definitely I would be glad to visit the NYS unit in Rangala alongside other units to make sure that they operate in a manner that is beneficial to our young people. Finally, Mheshimiwa Mbui, I am aware of the matter you have raised of the two affidavits sworn by Mrs. Masinde and Mr. Malombe. And Mr. Chairman, I did file with this committee an affidavit in response to those matters. It is a comprehensive 21-paragraph affidavit. And I know that in the interest of time, I may not have the opportunity to go through this affidavit.
We have it.
Pardon?
We have it.
Yes.
So take half a minute on that.
Okay. Suffice it to say,
Robert, you've seen it, right? Yeah, okay.
Suffice it to say, Mr. Chairman, that number one, the report that is subject to the affidavits that Honorable Mbui refers to did really not investigate matters of the alleged bribery. In fact, Mr. Chairman, I have quoted verbatim a recommendation from that report appearing in paragraph 325, page 117 of that report, which says they did not delve into matters of the alleged bribery and referred this matter to the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. And Mr. Chairman, I'm aware that the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission delved into this matter and did not find it worth their time to progress it any further, meaning that they found the allegations nothing more than hot air. Mr. Chairman, significantly for purposes of this process, and I want to request you, Mr. Chairman, and the committee to give attention to the affidavit that I have filed. But suffice it to say that the so-called allegations were actually all withdrawn on record, as recorded in the report of the committee, which I have with me, a copy of which I have with me here, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Chairman, of course, we know that if I make an allegation against you and withdraw it, it expires that allegation ab initio. If that allegation is investigated by another body which finds it not worthy for any further action, then that matter is extinguished in its entirety. Mr. Chairman, I believe that in all the positions I have served in this House previously and in government, I have come out clean as the snow that global warming is wiping off the Mount Kenya peaks of Batian, Nelion, and Lenana. So, Mr. Chairman, I am completely blameless, as anybody would confirm from that report. And my position is as stated in the affidavit.
Good. The next batch. We said one each. Gikaria, Raso, Emase, Naisula. In that order. One question each. You have one more nominee to deal with. And if a question has been asked by another member, you don't have to re-ask it.
On the ban by this, I will leave it because he has answered that. Let me ask this question. Honorable Chair, the music industry relies on royalties generated by the licensing of copyright songs and recording as a primary form of payment for musicians. However, musicians fail to get their rightful share of royalties, a scenario that has now been the norm for a long, long time. And of course, they have always been complaining and meeting different people. So maybe you're the right person to address. What measures will you put in place to ensure that musicians get what they deserve? Thank you, Chair.
Excellent. Russell?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Ababu, congratulations on your nomination. You are going back to the same ministry where you served 10 years ago. I'm sure for those who don't know, maybe you might almost feel like you'll walk on water this time around because you have been there before. We interacted intensively when you were the Kazakh Ministry of Foreign Affairs. When you look at our sports, actually we see talent. It borders on hobby, and it borders on pastime. From where you sit, tell us how we must turn around sports to actually be an economic activity where the players, the country, and everybody is going to make money out of it, so that our athletes, our footballers, actually are in gainful employment. And at the end of the day, we can say from that ministry, our contribution to GDP is so much. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Well done, Mary. Follow suit, one question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's going to be one question. Honorable nominee, thank you for enacting the 2013 Sports Act that encompassed the 5 pillars, namely the Kenya Academy Sports, that was to deal with talent, the Registrar's Office, that was to regulate sports, Sports Kenya, that was to work on the infrastructure, the Sports Fund, that was to do resource mobilization, and the Sports Tribunal. My concerns are as follows. 65% of the nearly 4 billion for Sports Fund goes to health and only 30% to sports. What are you going to do about that? Kenya Academy of Sports is a factor of talent.
You said
as they are just related to that. But as it stands, most of the officers are in Nairobi, stranded in Nairobi. Instead of going to Garissa, going to Teso South, to Charcoal, and scout for these talents, reason being, there are no funds. Yet we have so many teams that have been formed in all our villages, and some of them are registered in the national leagues. But who is scouting this talent so that we can expose our young people, the youths, for them to be noticed and for it to be of use to them? Then finally, we understand that the Sports Act is due for review. What will your priority be in the review? Thank you.
Thank you. Naisula.
What is the plan to tap talent in art, sports, and nurture it from an early age, and especially from all parts of the country, and especially the rural areas, because there's a lot of untapped talent there? And lastly, on our, especially athletes, you know, every time our national anthem is played out there and how proud they make us, do you feel, or do we really appreciate them as much, even our footballers? Why are people changing their citizenship to other countries? Is it that, what is the plan to ensure that we take care of them so that they don't have to sell their nationality to be appreciated out there?
Those are 4 above. Let's take the 5th, Amisi and Koech. You can do 6. They are very short questions. If you answer them the same way, we'll make very good progress.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I had 2, so I'll reserve one at the tail end if we get time. I'll ask one for now. Okay. So remember to give me if there's time. The ministry, nominee, the ministry seems to not be keen on our community clubs. We find, in fact, myself, I've spent millions of shillings trying to sponsor a tournament as a member of parliament. Once the tournaments are over, these boys are just remained with trophies and a cash sponsorship. But beyond there, they are remain in the villages. And yet, they are talented. You try to invite the sports organizations, all the 18 premium clubs, they don't turn up, they don't come to scouts. What is new that you are bringing so that our local clubs, even the stadium, they are dilapidated. And that is where the talents are. You are talking about bottom up. The talents are actually at the bottom. There are no football manufactured in towns. They are manufactured down there. And I believe this is the gap. We are supposed to be a football nation. What are you going to do different this time? I will see you in Matisi, Black Stars there, Mitume FCs, that you are playing with them. In fact, probably could have come in your sporting gear, not in a suit, because that's where you are going.
Thank you. Coach?
Honorable Babu, my question has been asked, but I will just, to the left again, but I'll just give you something to food for thought. That our athletes generally are totally not recognized and appreciated in this country. Look, for instance, why did we have to go for Naomi Campbell to market our tourism, our Kenya as a tourism destination? Our sportsmen, particularly at AK, an anonymous athlete has written me a message to say there's a lot of corruption that you must check, especially when our athletes are going to perform or to compete in international stage. Number two, harness and tap on athletes, specifically someone like Eliud Kipchoge, on it, who's been used by international brands as a marketing sensational, and tap on such face to market our country and our sportsmen. Above all, please, if we approve you, make sure that there is a total restructuring of the sports industry in this country.
You can quickly answer those 6, Abab.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, very quickly starting with Honorable Gikaria. The question of royalties and benefits generally to, let me go beyond music. Music is a big part of it, but let me call it the creatives. The creatives, whether it is musicians or fine artists or thespians in our theaters or performing artists. This is a huge problem. And Mr. Chairman, it should be noted that we have a body in this country called KECOBO, the Kenya Copyright Board, which, with due respect, I believe it could do more in terms of protecting, first of all, protecting the intellectual property, because this really must be recognized as part of the intellectual property that we get from our artists. We should be able to get more out of it. But we also have organizations called CMOs that collaborate with KECOBO to sort of collect royalties on behalf of their members. And we have 3 main ones. We have the Music Copyright Society. I think this is the best known. We have the Kenya Association of music producers. This is mostly for people who produce music, and Performers' Rights Society of Kenya. These organizations have not done justice to the artists that they represent. In fact, just the other day, there was a case that made headlines where these societies were actually taken to court by some of the artists. And what came out is that it is a space that is riddled with opaqueness, if I could borrow that popular lexicon. But it's also riddled with a lot of mismanagement, and it's a space that will require a lot of attention. We need to take a look at the law. We have a law in this country called the Movable Assets Act. It is important for the House to consider recognizing the creative space and the artistic talents as intellectual property, but also as movable property, so that we can give sufficient weight to the creativity of our young people. It is an area which, Honorable Gikaria, through the chair, I want to assure you that the architecture of this ministry, as has been communicated in Executive Order number 1 of 2022, provides an opportunity, perhaps for the first time ever, for this space of creatives to be given form. If you approved me to take this office, I would move with haste to establish a whole directorate for the arts. A directorate that would give form to this sector, but would also then make it possible for us to allocate resources, to allocate funding to this sector and support our young people engaged in the creative industry. You also did ask the question on the artists getting what they deserve. I believe that once we have put in place we formalize that space, then it should be possible for us then to raise the entitlement that they get. Honorable Russell, and Mheshimiwa, you know that while working with you in my recent past life at the Foreign Office, during which again we successfully got the Foreign Service Act enacted, you saw the deliberate effort we put in to start profiling our sports people and turning them into ambassadors for this country. For instance, when we sought to sit on the UN Security Council, among the ambassadors we put forth to market Kenya as being worth of a place on the UN Security Council were our sports people. One of our highest profile activities was a marathon we organized in the streets of New York at the tail end of our campaign for the UN Security Council. And we tapped the profile of great sons of this land, great sons and daughters of this land like Eliud Kipchoge. And this is something that we have to do. But as you have correctly said, this must be turned into an industry. We cannot continue running sports and the arts as a sideshow, as a pastime. This is something which you should know. You can actually live from it fully and be able to take care of yourself. And it can be such a huge contribution to our GDP. It is happening in other economies. It's happening in places like the US, in South Africa. I mean, when you look even the way Tanzania is managing their sporting space, football, you can see there is already progress towards industrializing sports and the arts. We must do it, and I commit to do so, should I find favor of this committee. Honorable Emase, Mr. Chairman, you are right about the share of the fund, with 65% going to healthcare, and just a little bit, 30% going to sports and 5% going to the arts, for a fund which was created by the Sports Act for purposes of this particular area. We have to change that. We have to change that. We have to provide money into the academy, as you have correctly said. Our officers are in Nairobi. They're not visiting the rural areas. I know that Teso South is abound with talent. We have to provide resources to be able to nurture this talent, to identify this talent. And in terms of the priority in reviewing this law, we need to strengthen the discipline in our sports federations. There are a lot of issues within our sports federations, but we need to pay even keener attention in streamlining this funding space. But most importantly, as we review this law and this policy, my focus definitely would be on how we unleash the full potential of this country as a sporting and artistic country in an industrial, in a very economic, very commercial sense, Honorable Emase. Mheshimiwa Naisula, the plan to tap talent, we don't appreciate our sports people enough. And you are right. We have seen an unprecedented number of our sports people changing nationalities. The other day, there was an interesting ceremony in Gaborone, Botswana, where a few of their sports people who had just come back from some international event were feted in a massive national event, and they were being given three bedroom apartments. They are being given resources to Mheshimiwa Misi. We will go to Matisi with you, Mheshimiwa Misi, to make sure that we start demonstrating in a very clear way that we need to pay attention to grassroots talent development. And if you look at many countries that have grown exponentially in this space, they just get the basics right. And if you go back in the history of this country, when we did very well in sports like hockey, at one time Kenya used to be represented at the Olympics in hockey. Kenya used to be a powerhouse in boxing. Kenya used to be a powerhouse in cricket. These sports are no longer anywhere on the horizon. We just got the basics right. I remember when I was in high school at Kolanya, hockey was a big thing in Kisumu City. Big thing, and some of the best players playing for the Kenya national team in hockey were from Kisumu. We are not just paying attention to the breeding grounds of sports and talent. And I can tell you, if Ferdinand Manyala had not happened on us, we would never have imagined that we can actually crack the short distance space. Angela Okutoi is now winning tennis games at the very top level. The other day, she became the first Kenyan to win the doubles at Wimbledon. She won the singles at the Australian Open. Those are really premium global events. Now we are just realizing that we actually have talent in tennis. But for us to be able to do this, we have to dive deep and start identifying this talent from the source and nurture it to the top. So I am with this committee. I'm with you, Honorable Amisi, absolutely, 100%. And in the spirit of the Kenya Kwanza bottom-up, I will really do this bottom-up, like really go bottom-up, go to the bottom and develop this talent up in the spirit of our government. Finally, Mheshimiwa Koech, I was as dumbfounded as you were that Naomi Campbell would be hoisted on us as some kind of emblem or symbol of Kenyanness. Because if you needed a lady with a global image, we have Lupita Nyong'o, who is an Oscar winner, no less. We could have used Lupita if you wanted someone in that space. But Eliud Kipchoge is something of, it's a global rarity. It's a global rarity. I think it's one of those people that happen once in a generation. We haven't deployed him sufficiently. And so I agree with you, Honorable Koech, that we need to do more. What I can assure you is that I want to work with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, space that I'm very familiar with, to make sure that sports diplomacy is exploited fully and that brand Kenya can actually ride on the sporting prowess and the artistic prowess of this country. We want to see many more Lupita Nyong'os on the global stage. We want to see many more Eliud Kipchoges. We want definitely to see more Victor Wanyamas on the stage.
Thank you. You have answered all of them.
Mr. Chairman, there was just the issue of corruption, and just to assure that the Kenya Kwanza government has zero tolerance to corruption as a policy, and is a policy that I would definitely carry with me to the ministry.
Honorable Daoud, I'll not see if you don't have your flag up. Honorable Mole, Honorable Mukami, Honorable Ferdinand, Honorable Kosing, and George will be the last. All of you, 1 minute each. 1 minute, one question. In the manner I call you out. Mama Mishi.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, before I raise my question, I just want to make a polite plea to Our Excellency the President that through my observation I've seen in the nominees for the CS, I've not seen the face of the youth, nor the face of the people with disability, but I believe His Excellency still has some more appointments. I want to request that he also factor the youth and people with disability. And my question is on the hustler funds. I know right now, according to Kenya Kwanza Manifesto, you're going to create the hustler fund. Meanwhile, we already have the Women Enterprise Fund, we have the Youth Enterprise Fund, we have the Ways of Fund. So my question would be, what transitional arrangement would you propose to avoid duplicity? And also, again, that the Hustler Fund, on the same issue, the Hustler Fund has noted that for somebody to access that fund, you need to have done some saving. It will also attract some interest. So I don't know whether our hustlers in this country will be able to access that fund. What plans are you going to ensure that even those who cannot save, they can still access this fund? I thank you.
Actually, there's a nominee coming for that kind of engagement. But if you can answer Namwamba at the end of the questions, fine. Wait for Chelugui. That question will be very pertinent to Chelugui. Let's take the rest.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, one of the functions of the CS for youth is business innovation and incubation. And one of the other institutions which is under the CS is Sports Kenya, which takes care of our stadia in the country. And a case in point is last Parliament I had spoken to your predecessor and brought it to Parliament as well, that Sports Kenya had committed in Meru to do construction for when they were demolishing the offices and all that. But when the CS came to answer the question in Parliament, she completely disowned Sports Kenya's commitment. I want to know from you whether Sports Kenya, under you, will they be answerable to the commitments they had made on behalf of the CS, or what will happen? And regarding the business innovation and incubation, what is your take on that? What are you going to do for the youth?
Yes, Mole.
Thank you very much. This goes to the nominee. Due to poor governance and administrative structures, have ravaged most of the federations in this country, which has led to corruption, financial misappropriation, and some becoming squarely briefcase federation. On this side. Thank you. And these federations or organizations only work up during global competition like Olympics, Commonwealth, and other games, and which has led to poor payment of coaches, like the coaches to deal with Harambee Stars, the athletics coaches, volleyball coaches, and the entire management. What are you going to do as a sports minister to ensure that Kenya sees a different sporting fraternity which can generate revenue for this country and employment?
Thank you. Ferdinand, you're the next. Then Kosing, then George. I didn't. Were you on the list? Oh, okay.
Nominee, I think I want to be very specific. And from what you're explaining, I think the sports in this country will definitely improve. The way you're tackling, the way you're actually answering the questions. But specifically now, football, which I think is one game that everybody loves in this country. And there are three teams that I know, that you know, the Goromaya Goromaya, AFC Leopards and Breweries were very good teams in the past. They've gone, in fact, they are doing very badly, either because of support from the ministry or whatever. Tell me, or tell us, what are you going to do to be able to improve the sense of these teams, so that you can get through this, can get our youths actually being called to play professional football elsewhere. The three teams are very, very key in this country. Me having been an official in AFC and played for the club at one time, I just want you to tell us what do you do specifically on these three teams.
Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I want to ask Honorable Babu Namwamba through you that, Mr. Chair, is the nominee motivated to work in the Ministry of Sports, really? Because we are trying to assess his suitability or confirm his suitability to that ministry, Speaker and Chair. Why am I saying that? Because, Chair, prior to election, we saw Honorable Namwamba, I saw Honorable Namwamba, and many Kenyans saw him playing very important and pivotal role in terms of issues of international relations, taking the candidate to very prominent appointments internationally, all over the world, Honorable Speaker. And the work, which in my view, he did exceptionally well. So now, many Kenyans, including me, expected that he was going to be nominated for Foreign Affairs. That is where he was going to really have a lot of motivation, energy, and eager. To see him, Honorable Chair, in sports, I'm not seeing the candidate motivated sufficiently, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, we might be approving, and I want him to convince me. Honorable Chair.
Honorable Posing, we are ask him questions that test his suitability and motivation, to use your word, for the office for which he has been nominated, not the office for which he has not.
Speaker, can I continue?
Just ask the question or make your comment.
For him to explain to me specifically, Honorable Speaker, allow us the latitude to prosecute our questions, Honorable Speaker. This is a vetting process, confirmation process. And I want him to explain to Kenyans and me.
He's very
is he sufficiently motivated to take the office? I thank you.
It's very good to ask questions. If you ask him why he's not in foreign affairs, he'll tell you, go and ask the appointing authority. What else would you ask thereafter?
Speaker, you are paraphrasing, and you are paraphrasing my question. I asked him to explain to me, is he motivated sufficiently to take over the Ministry of Sports? I didn't ask him sports. I didn't ask him foreign affairs, Speaker.
Yes.
You are boxing me towards a corner. That Kenyans will look at me as if I'm not asking relevant questions. I'm asking very relevant questions.
Very good.
Yeah. And
your question was very relevant.
Very relevant, yeah.
Is he sufficiently motivated?
Correct.
To be in this ministry?
Yes.
Yes.
Vis-a-vis
that
what,
he did
what
very well elsewhere is neither here nor there.
Yeah, so exactly. So is he motivated? He explained to
Morugara.
me. Thank you, Chair. But don't help him too much.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you very much. Nominee.
Why am I being boxed?
The youth of Kenya is actually watching you today, and possibly they got very high hopes in you when you take over this ministry once, if you are confirmed. Their question is, millions of them, especially summer graduates, are out there unemployed. The government is supposed to first and foremost take them as interns, and after that, the government is also supposed to work extremely hard to see to it that they are absorbed and not downloaded out there. You take them as interns for 1-2 years, then you just let them go, and they are back to the streets unemployed. As the minister in charge of youth affairs, do you propose to work with the government to ensure that the numbers in the government, the parastatals, and all other agencies are increased in terms of interns, and also to ensure that majority of them are retained in government service in line with the Kenya Kwanza manifesto of ensuring that almost every youth is employed?
Thank you. Thank you. Rahab?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask almost a similar question. How will you ensure that the youth are empowered to pursue sports, not only as a hobby,
but also an economic activity that will offer job opportunities to them. Thank you.
Chair.
Yes.
Chair. Just,
Naisula, you had your bite already.
I have never asked for another opportunity. Kindly. CS, and this is important. CS nominee, there are many studies that have been started, and they are now incomplete and stalled. We have Kipkeino Stadium in Wasingishu, we have Kamarin Stadium in Elgeyo Marakwet, we have Mombasa Municipality Stadiums, and having in mind that we'll Kapsabet, and we lost the bid to host the 2025 World Athletics Championships because of lack of infrastructure. How can we be the best in the region, in the world, and we are not able to complete? And just so that you answer that question, having in mind that I have a great feeling that we don't get value for money in the projects where we put money and we don't complete them. I would like to get your thoughts about it.
Yes, Ababu, if you
Thank
can
you, Mr.
round
Chair.
up all those very quickly.
Asante, Mr. Chairman. Very, very quickly, Mheshimiwa Mishimboko, I stand guided by the chair that this is a matter which my colleague Simon Chelugui will be very well equipped to handle this. But just to tell you that my understanding, having served in cabinet previously, my understanding that the principle of collective responsibility will come to bear on how the Hustler Fund will be managed. And the Youth Fund, the Women Fund, the Wezo Fund, all those funds should work in sync, and there should be some synergy. And I'm aware that consultations are already going on how that space will be managed with symphonious harmony, so that you don't lose time, you don't lose energy, and you don't lose resources. And I believe that I'll make my contribution in that direction and in that regard. Mheshimiwa Dawood, Sports Kenya. Once a commitment has been made, the commitment should be honored. And what I can tell you is that it will be important for us to review all these commitments and see how they can be implemented, because there must have been a motivation, there must have been a reason why these commitments were done, including in your constituency. And I want to assure this House that when I was first Minister for Youth Affairs and Sports, I was also Member of Parliament. So I already had a habit of working very closely with the House, basically having the ministry and the House working in sync. I intend to do the same should you confirm me in this position. So a lot of the issues you are raising here, I'll be very happy to revisit them with the specific attention to respective constituencies. Business innovation and incubation is important. I believe that we must raise the space of sports and the arts to the next level. Today you can go to Amazon, you can go to eBay, you can go to Alibaba, and you will access anything in any part of the world. I believe we can do the same in this country by creating a portal that can help us. If you have a young, talented artist in Samburu, they should be able to log into a portal and say, I am here, look at me, assess me, okay? Or some brilliant talent in Msambweni telling you, come look at me. But they should be able to have a way to talk to us. Artists that are churning out fine art, they should be able to have a portal where they can upload their production and say, here it is, any buyer out there. So I would be proposing the establishment of a portal that would work very much along the lines of the Amazons and the eBays and the Alibabas of this world, to make sure that the artistic and sporting talent can be portaled for our young people and our young talents, our talented people, to be able to take full advantage of the digital space. And it can be done. You drive down Ngong Road and you see the kind of things young people are doing along Ngong Road or along Jogoo Road. It's amazing, whether it's furniture or pieces of art. It's incredible. But they struggle to market these pieces. We will provide a portal where they can market these pieces and where we can purchase these pieces. And we should also be able to sit in cabinet and ask government. Government is a key driver of any economic sector. Government should buy stuff from these young people. Government should make it a policy that all the nice paintings, like the paintings I see around this hall and the pieces of art, we should be able to see them in every government office, in every parastatal office. And there should be a place where government can actually get these things directly from the artists in a way where we age out the usurious middlemen who suck the blood literally out of our young people. Mheshimiwa Mule, I couldn't agree with you more on cleaning up the space around our federations. And you know, Mheshimiwa, yes, a lot of our federations operate within a framework of the international legal space. FIFA has statutes. The World Athletics Federation has statutes. FINA in swimming has statutes. But these statutes have to be in sync with our domestic legislation. And we must make sure that this is done. So that if corruption is corruption, we must be able to call it out. And we must be able to take action without our sports people suffering. So this is an area which, Honorable Mule, I would be very happy to work with the House. One area where we didn't do very well with the Sports Act, it is in terms of sanctions, sanctioning federations, sanctioning individuals when they go contrary or when they act again contrary to the law. And so they keep on running to the international space. So we need to clean up that, and definitely something I would be interested in. Honorable Ferdinand, I know what you're talking about. I feel you. I have played football at a rudimental level. Mr. Chairman, actually, at one time, I was the lead striker for Bunge FC. I don't know whether my record for most number of goals scored for Bunge FC has been broken yet. So I'm very
such record is kept here.
Okay. Now that record does exist, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, that one was broken by Kipchumba Murkomen.
Who was it? It has not been communicated officially. But Mr. Chairman, that with a light touch, that I have also been an official of one of the clubs that you mentioned, and I'm very keen to see, when we talk about developing community or grassroots football, we must connect it to what we call our community clubs, our community clubs. And so we have to develop these community clubs at all levels. At the national level, talking of teams with real national and international pedigree, like Gor Mahia, like FC Leopards, and other clubs that really represent spirits of their local areas. We have to see how we can support these clubs. And one of the things we are going to do very strongly is to strengthen sponsorship. It is sad that a partner like Supersport left the local sporting scene, yet it used to play a very significant role in terms of even just marketing our players by airing our live games. When I was minister, I traveled all the way to South Africa to make arrangements in that space with Supersport. I would want Supersport to come back. I would want other partners to strengthen that space in terms of sponsorship and exposure. But most importantly, we must put money in our football. Honorable Ferdinand Wanyonyi, it is an area which I will be very committed to if you find me worthy to serve in this ministry. Mheshimiwa Kosing, if you had a passion meter here, you would actually find that I'm 100% passionate about coming to this ministry. And I'm highly motivated to serve in this ministry. It is a ministry where I have worked previously. And those of us who have had the privilege of serving in government, you serve where you are assigned by the appointing authority with similar passion. And so the current cabinet secretary in charge of sports, started off as Cabinet Secretary for Foreign Affairs and moved to education and has finished her tour of duty at the Ministry of Sports. That is just how the ball rolls. And you roll with the ball and you serve your nation with passion and motivation where you are assigned. During campaigns, everybody played different roles. There are those who played security roles. I don't think they're going to be required to run security in this country. There are those who played communication roles. They may not necessarily end up running communication. We played our role during the campaigns, and in the spirit of collective responsibility, we'll continue working together. But yes, I'm highly motivated to serve in this docket. Honorable Murungara, let me, when you talk about the youth of Kenya and jobs, Mr. Chairman, the youth of Kenya are disillusioned. They're dispirited. They feel disenfranchised. And it is not accidental that in the last elections, the largest portion of Kenyans who did not turn up to vote were actually Kenyan youth, because they just feel disconnected from the, what you can call the mainstream economy of this country. We have to give the youth of this country fresh hope. And we have to start by putting in place policies and measures that can enable them to have a dignified existence. And so if you have young people who are being absorbed through the Ajira program, for instance, we have a program in this country called the Ajira program. There must be a way where after you have played a role in the Ajira program, government somehow mainstreams you into the system. As I talk to you now, Mheshimiwa Murungara, 1,300 young people are engaged at the judiciary, doing transcription, doing scanning, basically helping in the digital operations of the judiciary under the Ajira program. There must be a way where these 1,300 young people, and they are young people who have gone to school well, there must be a way where they can be absorbed. And so I am going to be the #1 champion for young people to be integrated in the mainstream economy and to make sure that those who want to live off their talent, they live off their talent with dignity. And we can do this by investing in infrastructure, helping with marketing, opening avenues for them to earn a dignified living, and protecting them in terms of protecting their intellectual property and making sure that what they're bringing to the table is recognized in whichever space they are operating. And so the young people of Kenya can be assured of my full support and availability. And my policy would be that nothing for young people without them. And so a lot of the things we want to do, we want young people to be at the center of it, driving it, whether it's the Youth Fund, whether the National Youth Council, whether the National Employment Authority. You want to see young people fully engaged in these programs for them. Mheshimiwa Rehab, empowering young people to pursue sports as an industry, as a formal engagement, I am with you 100%. And that is why I'm talking of innovations like eBay, Amazon, Alibaba, where we provide a space where young people can share their creativity, they can share their talent, but also make it clear to federations in this country that these young people do not exist to just service their interests. So the way they operate must be in a manner that serves the best interests of these sports people. And if for nothing else, at the end of the Kenya Kwanza government, and I know His Excellency President William Ruto is very passionate about this, we should have elevated sports and the arts into a roaring industry and a mega employer of our young people. Mheshimiwa Naisula, Stadia have stalled all over the place. Kasarani, I think, is stalled at just about 40%, and many others all over the place. And you're right, there is definitely no value for money in a lot of these places. And the sad thing also is that we are still building stadia in the old mold. A stadia, we are still thinking that a stadia is a terrace, a green pitch in the middle, and some track around. No, the world moved on. Stadia now are integrated facilities. Stadia have theater. Stadia have recording studios. Stadia it's an integrated space where sports people and artists can do so much more than just kicking a ball on the green patch or running around the track. And so one of the things that we must do also is to revisit even the design of our stadia. And we must turn all our stadia must be turned into centers of excellence so that we have activities going on there continuously. I mentioned Clairefontaine, which is run by the French football, but there are also clubs. When you go to Barcelona, they run a great academy called La Masia, where they churn out great talent like Messi, who was discovered at the age of 6, 7. Who is discovering talent in this country at age 6, age 7? And where would these talents be discovered? We must make this the spaces where we can spot this talent and grow this talent so that we can be able to compete with the rest of the world. And it is an area where I'm going to be available. We will assess the facilities that are in place and then start a new journey on how to manage that space better. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Honorable Namwamba. I'll give Honorable Posing one last chance.
Was there anything remaining?
Yes, I'll give you one last chance.
Was there anything remaining? I wish the candidate wish the candidates exist.
You okay?
Yeah. I wish the
Meshimbogo has sent me a question. He was afraid of having another bite, but I'll allow you to ask yourself about the rehabilitation of youths from drugs and other substances.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker, and thank you for giving me this chance once again. To our nominee, I know you are aware about drugs menace in the Coast region and even in the entire country, Nairobi, even now in the area like Nakuru. The other time I was talking to Mheshimiwa Gikari, and he also told me that it's a big problem in Nakuru. Right now, currently in our government, we don't have any public rehabilitation centers. What we have those which are privately owned. I don't know whether you have some plans to ensure that we actually have public rehabilitation centers, and this should be at the constituency level. Because right now, what we have been seeing, the mushrooming juvenile gangs, it's as a result of drugs addicts. We have really tried to do some outreach program, sensitization. We have talked to the government regarding the barons, the agents of drugs, but it's like it's a big cartel. There's so many people who are in this cartel, and it has become very difficult. What we are hearing is that maybe some of the police officers are on payroll weekly, monthly. So it is very difficult. We don't know what you can do. When you go to Lamu right now, you can just cry, sing, big numbers of youth in drugs. It's not like 100 youth. You see like 2,000 youth in Lamu. You come to Mombasa, you see like 5,000 youth in drugs, hard drugs. We don't know what we can do. We have really tried so many times. We have even identified the barons, those we call vichuzi. We take information to the police personnel, but nothing is being done. Up to now, I don't know what's wrong with our borders. Like for instance, our border Lunga Lunga here, Horohoro, Tanzania and Kenya, where most of the drugs passes through those borders. I think there must be something differently which is going to be done to ensure that we save the youth of this country. Otherwise, as parents, we have our daughters, they will not even get husband where we are going in the coast region. Because, you know, for them, they're not even interested in having girlfriends, in marrying. What they're interested is just getting the kete. That one kete, you buy it at 200 and it's all. Nothing else. They're not interested in anything in life, in what, nothing. Just drugs. It's really pathetic, Honorable Speaker. I'm really crying anytime I talk about drugs. I'm really crying. In my constituency, anytime I go, anytime I just land in Likoni constituency, I get around 1,000 youth coming for me. Mama tujapona, and you can give them money. They don't buy food, they don't buy clothing, they just buy the kete, that hard drug. Thank you.